I
Haiti, will
haven't
you
finished
fucking
talking.
shut him up?
Yeah. Why don't you think babies go to hell under Calvinism? Echo?
Well, I don't see any biblical evidence that to be the case.
Uh-huh.
I think what I see in Scripture is God condemning people for the things that they do know, and not for the things that they don't know. So I, it makes no sense to me that God would send either a baby or a person who's mentally ill to eternity in hellfire. Or I should not
Uh,
mentally ill, but mentally incapable. I should say. Let me put it that way. That's probably better. So that to me that doesn't make
right.
sense. But I understand that there are some Calvinists out there who actually hold to that position, and
Mm.
I disagree with them on that aspect.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't.
John holds to. Sorry, I think John, and you correct us if you're wrong. I think you say that nobody is without excuse, right? Even the tribes people in some place through general revelation, right?
I do hold that position, yes.
Well, but don't you hold to election, Verkel?
Yeah, I believe in election. Yeah. What about you?
I think that's to you, John.
No. You go.
Oh, I mean, of course. I mean, I didn't. I thought it wasn't even a question to me.
I wasn't asking John.
Well, you're asking an atheist if they believe in election.
Yeah, yes, I believe it. Of course, I believe in election.
What about you guys?
I don't believe in babies.
You don't believe in it? You eat them?
No, I don't believe in them.
Oh, so that's why it's okay to eat them then. Okay, gotcha.
No, I can't think it's okay to eat babies if
Uh,
I don't think babies exist.
uh,
It's dumb.
well, babies. Well, you can always make up excuses for why you eat them, and just not call them
You
babies.
can't eat. No, they don't exist, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's okay. That's what you believe.
Yep, it
That's an
is.
interesting thought process to keep in mind, though. You
Right.
gotta, yeah. Do you use that thought process? Do you go and say things don't exist, but I can do whatever I want because I say they don't exist? Sometimes when somebody says something, it's just projection. That sounded like
Mm.
projection.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I find it interesting you answer
Somebody else out
exactly the way I do, and
or
no
about
one's outraged at you, Beckel.
okay. What's that?
I just find it interesting that you literally almost word for word answer in the way that I do and would, but no one's outraged at you.
Maybe we're outraged out. We've been outraged all
I
day and
think, I
yesterday.
think they pity me. I think that's why, John. They respect you more than they respect me, I guess. So maybe that's
Are you
what it
sure
is.
it's not the other way around?
Maybe they fear you more than they fear me, I guess. Maybe that's what it is. So
Maybe loathe would be a better word.
it could be that too. You know, it could be that.
What
Yeah.
if
So I saw. Yeah. So I see that you
what
have
if instead of a lake of fire, it was a lake of rape?
a
Would
lake.
that be like immoral?
Oh, we're not Muslims here.
Because there seems to be some kind of disconnect. Because there seems to be things that are, as bad as Lake of Fire, or maybe worse or better. But I don't know. Lake of Fire seems to get a pass for some reason.
Not quite sure I'm following you. You like? Should it be
Well,
something?
maybe if you answer the question, we can get somewhere, right?
You
What if it weren't a lake of fire? It was a lake of rape. Would it then
know, that'd be
change your
messed
mind
up.
about it being okay for babies to go to hell or whatever?
Well, there's a difference between how I feel about something and whether or not the thing is true.
Yeah, you
So
can answer both questions. I mean, like we
yeah,
don't have
yeah,
access to what
yeah.
exactly. We don't really have access to whether and the actual nature of the lake. So I'm really pretty much asking you about how you feel.
Well, you're asking me about how I feel about it, I mean, I could tell you if it was a rape of lake. I mean, a lake of rape. Uh, yeah, I'd personally be uncomfortable with that. Yeah.
Wait, but
You can under.
would you? It would still be good though, right? It'd still be just, right?
So in the worldview where God is the arbiter of morality, he does nothing arbitrarily or capriciously.
Your
So,
worldview, right?
if, so
That's your
yeah.
worldview.
So
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
would be the case, then yeah, sure, why not?
Sure,
Why
why not?
not?
See, it's
But
weird
but we
because it
but we
seems
know
you see.
but,
Hold on a sec, because there's
but
this
we know
thing
that
where
that's
like you
not
guys
true.
want to
We know
say, "Oh yeah, of course, hey, I'm signing off on it. Got my hand up. Got no problems with it." But then I think your own actions betray you because you can't say it.
I can't say
Isn't
why.
that weird?
I can't say why.
Can't say that if it were a lake of rape, there would be
Uh-huh.
nothing wrong with it.
Okay, but you are speaking hypothetically, sir. You do
Yeah,
realize,
yeah.
right?
See, you want to sign off on it like all big and bad, but then you can't even
I
say
know,
it.
I know. But I'm just
So
playing
say
your
it.
game. I'm playing your game. We're speaking hypothetically.
Becca,
Yeah,
what
go
would you
ahead and
say to
answer
the person?
hypothetically.
Becca,
Don't you want me to answer a hypothetical question that doesn't pertain to the Bible? Okay, fine. I could play your game.
So what was the answer?
I already gave you the answer.
See what I mean? You can't say it.
Yes, I did. I already gave you the answer. Rewind the video. Oh well, you can listen to it in the replay. Put it up on your video.
I don't.
On
Well,
your
I
channel.
mean, you might have said yeah, but you can't say the words.
I can't say what words. I
I'll
just
say
did.
it again. Repeat after me.
I
If it
just
were the
did. I already
case
gave you
that
an
the
answer.
lake of fire were a lake of rape,
But I already gave
and
you the
my
answer.
God, and that what my God did, I would have no problem with it, and it would be just and good.
I already gave you the answer. What's wrong?
No, but I'm saying that you can like head nod, but you can't actually
Oh,
say
you
it,
can't
which
do
makes me
that.
think that you don't actually believe it.
But I already gave you my answer to your hypothetical question. I don't see what the problem is.
The problem is you're not saying the words. That's the
What
problem. Do
words?
you understand?
What other words could I say?
Oh my God, are
say
you
the words.
serious?
It would
Yeah,
be
yeah, I'm
perfectly
saying.
fine by me if God sent babies to a lake of rape.
Oh, okay. No. I already told you that there's nothing that
So you
God does
can't say it.
that's
Why aren't you
Right?
capricious
See,
saying it?
or
you don't
capricious.
even believe your own bullshit.
I know. I know. Well,
What is
I'm,
he even really
I'm,
saying
I'm
when he says that
I'm
there's
answering
nothing
to your
that
hypothetical
God
question.
does that's not capricious, though? Like, in virtue of what would it be capricious
Hey,
for
John,
God?
did I say
In
anything wrong?
virtue of what would it be capricious for God to ordain a lake of rape rather than a lake of fire?
Hey, John, you there? Did I say anything wrong?
Do you guys understand the question? Right? He wants to
I
say
think I
that
do.
it's. He wants to say that it's. He wants to say that it's not capricious that God ordains a lake of fire, right? But
Yes,
it
right.
can't be. It can't be because um, a lake of fire is good and a lake of rape is bad, right? Because there's no standards external to God
Yeah, what
that
would
guide his
explain that?
action, right? Yeah.
I brought this up
So
earlier
I'm
to
trying to
John.
understand. I'm trying to understand when, in virtue of what, it would be capricious for God to ordain a lake of rape.
Beckel, I think that question's for you, my guy.
You guys are really scaring me now.
Well, yeah,
So
answer the
what's the
question.
answer to the question?
You guys are really scaring me now. Let's just slow down for a second. You guys are. I don't know what to do
Is there
now.
a word that
I,
you need help with, Beckel? Because I'd like an answer to the question.
I'm I'm just you guys are really scaring me. I feel like
Or how much of
I'm
the
getting
dodging are we
over,
going to tolerate?
it's getting overwhelming with all these questions here.
What?
Okay.
I like see my favorite part where he's like,
Yeah.
What words do you want me to repeat?" I repeat the words. What? I don't understand. What do you
Wait,
guys want me to say?
is
I
that a
repeat the words.
terrible?
What words are you trying to get me to say? I
That's
repeat
a
the words.
terrible.
I don't. I'm not getting. I'm not understanding.
Huh, that's a terrible Joe Biden
So how
imitation.
much of the dodging are we going to tolerate, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same question.
Yeah, there's a question on the
'Cause you
table
guys,
for you. We're waiting
I
for you to answer it.
answer. The problem is that you
Why
guys,
won't you
we
answer?
all come on, Tom. We all know what
What
you
are we
want.
Why
dodging?
won't you answer?
I already answered the question.
No, you didn't. What was the
Yes, I
answer to
did.
Jack's question?
You already answered the question.
All you said is you're scared. What's the answer to the question?
No, see, you haven't been paying attention. That's the problem.
Yeah, I did. I
I
missed
said
it. What's the answer
I
to the
first asked
question?
the question that according to the Christian worldview, that since God is the arbiter of morality, then there's nothing that he does that is arbitrary or capricious. Therefore, in that world, if he were to have something like that set up,
Like
then
what? You can't even say it. You can't even say it
no
because it
one would
doesn't
be.
sound right even to you. It doesn't even sound right to
I love
you.
it. This is awesome. I see. I can see right through you guys. It's too awesome. It's too easy. It's too easy.
Yeah,
It's too.
lake rape
No,
is
but
great.
what you guys really want me to say is God is evil for God would be evil for doing something like
No,
that.
I just want an
That's
answer
what
to
you
Jack's
want.
question.
No, 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 no,
Come
no, no,
on
no.
now.
That's actually the opposite of what we want. We want
No,
you to say that
no, it's
God is
not.
great
No,
and God
no, it's not.
is
Come on,
just and good for that.
come on,
So you're not even tracking. You don't even.
come
You
on now.
actually
Come
are
on.
have it completely wrong.
Come on now. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Do you think? Did you think we were going to ask this question and get you to say, I would have a problem with that. Babies being sent to a
I
lake
mean,
of rape would be
yeah, look,
terrible,
I have
and,
to be
and God
honest.
is evil. You really expected? You really thought we expected that
Personally,
answer from you?
I don't really care what you guys think of me. To be honest with you, you don't really have anything to offer me.
Well then, that's all the more reason why we would expect that you would just be able to answer it and use use
Yeah,
the
well, I
words,
already
which
gave
you
you
say
an
you don't
answer.
have a
I
problem with.
think it's satisfactory. The problem
Like
is,
all your actions betray you, like all of them.
I want
what I mean,
straight. I feel like I didn't get a straight. We didn't get a straightforward answer. So, according to Jack's question, your answer to Jack's question is a lake of rape wouldn't be capricious at all, right?
I said
That's not an answer to my question, because the question
in
is in
Christian,
virtue.
take it over.
Question is in
Yeah.
virtue of what would it be capricious for God to ordain a lake of rape rather than a lake of fire?
It would be contrary, since we know in Scripture that this is not a part of God's nature to do something like or ordain something like that. Then we know
Why?
that
Because a lake of rape is mean? What do you think a lake of
no,
fire is,
like
dumbass?
Yeah,
no,
why is that within his
say that.
nature?
I said a lake of rape is contrary to God's
But
will.
burning them isn't?
Sounds like
Why?
all you're
How?
saying. Sounds like all he's
There
saying is
be no such thing as
that
the lake of rape.
there isn't actually a
Just speaking
reason.
hypothetically, so that's
There
fine.
isn't actually a
We can
reason.
play the game.
Sounds like all he's saying is there isn't actually a reason why a lake of rape is inconsistent with his nature,
Yeah.
right? Rather than a lake of fire. It's just a brute fact about God that he prefers lakes of fire to lakes of rape, right? But then
Yeah,
I guess I don't under. But then I get. But then I guess I don't understand what arbitrary is even supposed to mean there. Because if it's just a brute fact about God, why isn't that
Yeah,
arbitrary?
it's arbitrary. Yeah.
So I
no,
guess
when
what
I
I
say
want to understand is what does arbitrary mean if it doesn't mean it's a brute
okay,
fact
but
about
it's
God?
Not just this property, but
okay.
all
All
of
right.
God's properties will be similarly arbitrary.
Yeah, but not in the way that you're trying to use it. Because if you look it up in the definition, there's two definitions of the word arbitrary. And the way you guys are wanting to use it is in reference to, I think, the first part of the definition, which is in reference to something
Are
being done on.
God's properties what they are
Then
for
I
a
say,
reason or not?
okay, if this is the game we're going to play, then I'll just keep saying stupid stuff. So,
You'll do that
Okay, so what does
regardless.
he mean by arbitrary? What does he mean by arbitrary?
okay, what I was trying to say is that if you look it up in the dictionary, there's actually two uh, sort of definitions of the word. And the way you guys want to look at the word is in reference to something being done capriciously or on a whim or without any real authority or purpose or
Hey, well,
reason.
that's what you said, right?
Okay. Now, and that's what
You
I'm
said,
saying
right?
is that
God doesn't do anything
what I'm saying,
capriciously,
yeah,
right?
right. God
And
does
then
not.
you use the word arbitrarily as if it were a synonym. So when you said capriciously there, were you using that in a different sense? Or did you use it to mean arbitrarily?
Okay, so what I was going to say is
Fuck.
that God does not do these things arbitrarily in that fashion of the first
Yeah,
definition
when you said
I just.
capriciously, right?
That means that
When you
everything
said
that he does,
God doesn't do anything
everything that he
capriciously,
does, he
when
has
you
a
said
reason for it, and
God
there is a
doesn't do
reason for it,
anything,
and
when
because
you said
he is
God
the
doesn't do
Almighty,
anything
he is the
capriciously
Alpha and
or
Omega,
arbitrarily,
and there's
were
nothing
those
higher
synonyms?
than him,
So
then that
what's
means
going on
he
here?
has no
Why isn't he
obligation.
answering? What is this going on here right now where he's not answering the question? What's this about?
He's kill screening. He's dodging.
Yeah. Do you think that I'm going to drop the question?
Okay, can
Are
I
you
finish
that
my
dumb
first
that
response?
I'm going to drop the
Okay.
question? So I'll repeat the
Well,
question.
go ahead and repeat
I'll
the question.
repeat the question. Yeah, I'll repeat the question that we want you to answer. Because you
No,
just
Yo,
no,
said that
Veckel,
we
no.
were using.
just let him
Go
ask
ahead
the
You
and
question.
just
put
you
it down
just
on the
said
table.
you just said we were using
Yeah,
arbitrary.
I
You
know.
just said we were using arbitrary. You just can somebody mute him while I'm talking? Haiti. You just said we were using arbitrary in the sense of capriciously, and that's not the sense that you meant, right? But earlier you said God doesn't do anything capriciously or arbitrarily, right? So when you said those words, capriciously or arbitrarily, were you saying synonyms, or were you saying two different? Were you predicating two different things of God's actions?
Can I talk
Yeah,
now?
if you answer the question, what's the
Okay.
answer?
What I was gonna say
Huh?
before
I
is
didn't ask
that
you what you were going to
I
say before. I asked you what the answer to this question is.
okay. What I was gonna say before
I
is
didn't
that
ask you that.
when God, because
You
God is
understand
the
that the question
Almighty,
on the table is,
because God
right?
is the
You
Almighty,
understand that the question on the
because God
table
is
is,
Almighty,
when you
there's
said
nothing
God
higher
doesn't
than Him.
behave capriciously
Therefore,
or
He has
arbitrarily.
no
So what is he doing
obligation
right now?
outside
What
of
is he doing
Himself
right now?
to do anything.
He's scrambling.
So therefore,
Yeah, Veckel, you think the
in
question's
that
going to go
sense,
away?
it's arbitrary, but not
You think I'm going to drop the
capricious,
question?
and that's what I'm only trying to tell you.
Yeah.
But
So
I
here's the
understand
question. Here's the question again,
you're
right?
making it too much
That you
fun,
for some reason think
Dragon.
I'm going to drop,
So
right? But I'm
I
not
will
going to
gladly
drop
answer
it.
it.
So
The
I'll just
question that
repeat.
you
I'll
have
just
the
repeat the
problem is though
question.
that you can't
When you
just
said,
arbitrarily
when you
jump in the
said,
middle of my sentence
when you
while I'm
said
trying to
God,
speak.
when you
If
said,
you want me to
when
answer
you
your
said
question, I
God,
got
when you said God doesn't behave
absolutely
capriciously
amazing. Yeah,
or
let me get it.
arbitrarily. So when you
He's
said
trying to.
God
Can I? Can
doesn't
I?
behave
Can
capriciously, when you said God doesn't behave
hold on.
capriciously or arbitrarily, right?
Hey, hey,
Were you were you stating
hold
two
on.
words that you took to be
Hold on.
synonymous, that is
I just want to say,
capriciously and arbitrarily? Or were you expressing two different properties of God's actions?
Too much noise on your end, Jack.
Oh my God.
Yeah, were you
oh,
expressing
this is
two
funny.
different properties
Hold
of
on.
God's
Hey,
actions?
hey, we having a good time now? Are we having a good time? I am. I'm having a great time. This is
You
great.
think I'm going to drop the question,
Yeah.
Veckel?
No, I don't want you to drop the
Well,
question. I just want you to give me a chance to answer the first three. Okay,
There's one
that's all
question
I'm
on the
asking you.
table right now,
I'm
which is what
asking.
you
Yeah,
meant by
but no, but
capriciously
you can't.
when you
But
said
Jack,
God doesn't act
Jack, you
capriciously.
can't
Beckle,
do that though.
just
Jack,
answer
Jack,
this
you can't do
question.
that.
We don't care about previous
No, no,
questions. We
no,
want an
no,
answer
no,
to
no,
this
no. We're
one.
not going to play that game because then what you do is you
Veckel,
bombard
do you realize
people.
you're a rodeo clown?
What you're doing is you're bombarding people with a series of questions, and then when we only get a chance to answer one of them, you then declare
Because you
victory,
haven't
and
answered
you say,
any of them.
you answered this
Answer
one,
a question,
but
preferably
you
this
didn't
one.
answer the other
That's all.
5,000
We're going to
questions
forget
I
about
asked.
those. You can forget
So
all
you're
about those and
you're
just answer
lost.
this one. We're making it
So
easy,
I think you
okay?
guys
This
are
one.
just making it too easy.
No,
You're
you are
making it
making it hard for
too
yourself.
easy.
You are making it very
No,
hard
no,
for yourself.
no. Of course, it's hard for me. If I knew it was going to
I
be
don't know
hard,
how Veckel lives with himself. Like, I would be so
if I knew
fucking
it was going to be
embarrassed.
hard, I wouldn't have come in here. Come on now.
I mean, or you can just admit that you don't have an answer and you're just wasting time.
No, no, I think you just need to admit that you don't like the answer. You want
You
so
haven't
badly to.
provided
I
one
didn't
yet.
even. I didn't even hear
Please
it.
provide
I
one.
Yes,
haven't
I
heard
have.
an answer.
Yeah, don't just wait to time. Wait to the next exciting episode of Time Ravage upload.
I can't
Just
wait for this
Clever.
video. This is
Haha.
going to be
Ha.
amazing.
I know it is. I
No,
can't wait too. You know, I'm subscribed to
these
Time.
videos are typically garbage. I mean, it's just like all dodging for what,
Right.
Yeah,
over
but
half an hour so far. It's not
it's
You
good
know,
even
for
like
you.
the last
interesting.
conversation I
But
had with Veckel on G Plus, him and Arcane were like laughing maniacally about chopping the hands off of common thieves.
Yeah, sounds
Oh
about
man,
right.
is that bad? Is that terrible?
Yeah,
Is that terrible?
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a world that I think would be pretty terrible. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to live in that world.
Uh,
Would you?
you think or you know? You think or you
I
know?
think.
I
Okay.
don't think you should let Veckel get off the hook.
I think you're
Well,
right, but I
before
don't
I
think he's
answer
going to
that,
answer the question. I just have,
No,
I'd
he's
much
not
love to
going to
hear him
answer
do
the
this.
question. That's why I'm saying
no,
that.
I'm
That's why I was
question.
asking at the
Did
outset,
you ask
how much of the dodging are we going to tolerate?
I'll answer the question, guys. I just need an opportunity to finish answering the other two questions that were asked to me
I'm
before.
with you, Jack. I think if we
Okay.
ask,
How about this? How about this? How about this, Feckle?
Yeah.
I'll take you up on your offer. However,
Okay.
before we do that, can you just give me the question that Jack is wanting answered? Can you just, you don't even have to answer it first. You can answer it after you've answered the other two questions that you want to answer. However, can you repeat the question that Jack is asking you now? Because
No,
otherwise,
no, I
oh,
can't
okay.
because I was
So
speaking.
so tell me, Vekal, how am I supposed to take, how am I supposed to interpret what your request is? Is it anything remotely approaching an honest request when you're saying you're going to answer a question, but you don't even know what the question is?
Well, how am I supposed to take seriously what you asked me when you don't even give me a chance to finish answering the question halfway through me speaking it?
No, you will get that opportunity. And
Oh,
I'm saying,
no, you're going to give it to me now, but you didn't do that before.
okay, well,
See,
so what?
well,
and because you've
the
done
answer
it
to
so
that
many
is
times,
apparently he was justified because you don't even
because
know
you've
the
done it so many,
question.
because you've done it so many times in the past, what makes you think that I should trust you now that you're going to do it again? That you're not going to do it again now?
Okay, I'll move everybody else off stage. Does that work for you?
No, no, no. I don't want that. I want
So
everybody to
you were just
agree.
bluffing, right? And I knew you were bluffing, right?
No, no, no. I just want a guarantee that whether you like the answer or not, or you find it irrational or not, that you at least give me a chance to voice it out. Is that
Said I
fair?
would. I said I would, but the precondition to that is that you need to know what the question is. That
Yeah,
seems
and I'm willing to receive the question again, but if you want an answer, you got to give me a chance to respond. Is that fair or no?
yeah.
Okay. So we have a deal then. You're gonna let me respond. You're not gonna jump in the middle of me answering your question.
Well, I won't, and if somebody else does, I'll mute them. That's the
I mean,
most I can possibly do.
that sounds good. Just reject it. That's all. It's fine. We can disagree, but I just ask that you give me an opportunity since I'm outnumbered here. So,
Okay, I said yes, bro.
all right, let's do it. Okay, ask the question. Shoot.
Okay, Jack, you're up.
Yeah, so you just said that we were using arbitrarily to mean capriciously, and there's another meaning of arbitrarily. So when you said God doesn't act capriciously or arbitrarily, and that would explain why he wouldn't command a lake of rape rather than a lake of fire. Were you predicating two different things of God's actions, or were those synonyms?
No, the question is, why not a lake of rape instead of a lake of fire? And then I said that in a worldview where God is the arbiter of morality, therefore, in that worldview, God does nothing capriciously or on a whim or without any justification to it, because he owes no man or anything outside of himself any justification, because he is that standard. So, therefore, in that worldview, if if there was such a thing as a lake of rape, no one would be able to hold him accountable and say that that was evil or immoral. Okay. Now, when I say that God does nothing arbitrary, I'm saying that he does nothing on a whim. He does nothing capriciously. However, since he is the Alpha and Omega, and he possesses a deity, therefore we can use the word arbitrary in the other sense, meaning that there is no authority above him. So therefore, all of his decisions, or all decisions and decrees and stuff, are based off of his nature, his standards, so on and so forth, but nothing outside of him. So, and if he wanted to, I would say, I'm just, just kind of making things up here. If he wanted to, he could change those things, and it would, he could change that reality. So that's all I'm trying to say.
Wait, if God wanted to, he could make it the case that ordaining a lake of rape rather than a lake of fire was good?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, in that worldview. Yeah.
So I don't understand. What would be his reason for doing so?
That's where the other definition of arbitrary comes in, because he is Alpha and Omega. He's the beginning and the last. So there's nothing outside of him that would obligate him or influence him to make such a decision. It's because he's the standard. So
I don't get it. You said that all his actions are justified. So I'm just asking, what would justify that action?
his nature, his standard, his being, his aseity. So there's nothing at all outside of God that would measure whether or not what God is doing is right or wrong.
How does his
He's
aseity justify his action? I don't get it.
there's no standard outside of him. There's no law outside of him that would determine that gives a measurement to his actions being right or wrong, good and evil.
But that's not providing a justification. That's just saying there's no justification external to him.
Well, he glorifies himself. I mean, there's nothing outside of him. I don't know how else to answer the question.
You said, right, that he doesn't do anything arbitrarily or capriciously. Everything he does is justified, right? So if I ask what would justify him ordaining a lake of rape rather than a lake of fire, right? You saying that there are no external standards to him is not providing a justification, just reporting an irrelevant fact, right? So what would be the justification?
If there is nothing outside of him that would determine his actions being moral or just, then what else would there be? He is the standard. He is the standard. He sets the standard. So in that world, it would be perfectly just because he's the
I didn't
standard.
ask you if it would be perfectly just, right? I asked you what would justify him doing that rather than ordaining a lake of fire.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, well, I'll
Again, if
explain
I
it
said,
to you if
yeah,
you don't understand it, right? So normally we justify things, right, by providing reasons
mm,
why one course of action is better than another, right? So we
according,
might say, the reason why I should take a train rather than walk to get to New Jersey as quickly as possible is because trains are faster. And so if my aim is to get there more quickly, right, that's the reason why I should take a train rather than walk, right? That's an example of providing reasons, which is to say justifying an action, right? Does that make it clearer?
no, because we're not talking about convenience. We're talking about the issue of morality. I mean, that's why the question was asked in the first place about rape versus a lake of rape versus a lake of fire. You're asking me whether or not, you're not asking me which one is more convenient. You're asking me which one is more moral. So I'm telling you that in the issue of morality, since God is the standard, okay, we're not talking about convenience or how a person feels about a thing. We're coming up with a hypothetical question about the issue of morality and whether or not a lake of rape is better than a lake of fire or vice versa. So again, in this hypothetical scenario, if we're basing it off of the Christian worldview that God is the arbiter of morality, there is no standard outside of him that he is obligated to, because he is the standard. He is the arbiter of these things. So therefore, in that world, uh, rape, a, a lake of rape would not be immoral. It wouldn't be contrary to his nature, his standard, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why you were talking about convenience, right? Because I wasn't tied to convenience. I was just using that as an example. You seem to think there's some fundamental disanalogy there that I'm not seeing, right? But let's just get clear. When you say God, not everything God does is justified, I take it that you mean by justified that he acts on the basis of reasons, right?
Well, he's acting on the basis of his nature, his estate.
Oh,
There's
so he
nothing.
doesn't he doesn't he
When you
doesn't
say
behave he doesn't act on the basis of reasons. Is that right?
no, I know what you mean. What you mean by on the basis of
Yeah.
reason?
So like, I have a reason.
Uh oh, you there? Did he cut out? Hello?
He got a phone call. Just give it a
Oh,
second.
okay.
You got a slight reprieve.
Actually, that's a
Congratulations.
good place for me to
Sorry about that.
plug in.
I got disconnected.
Yep, that's okay.
Yeah.
And
So
you were telling the question?
yeah, you understand that I have a reason to take a train, right? And if my aim is to get to New Jersey as quickly as possible, right? The rational thing to do, right, would be to act in accord with reasons, right? Which is to say, what I have most reason to do. And since my ultimate aim is to get to New Jersey as quickly as possible, right, I have reason to take a train rather than walk. That's what I mean by reasons, right?
No,
You
I get
understand
that.
what you
I get
understand
that.
how reasons function
No,
to
no,
justify actions there?
I agree. I just wish you would use a better analogy because because that analogy that you're bringing up about the train is faster to do this or be more rational to go this route than that route because you could get there quicker. That's not an issue of morality. I'd rather you use an analogy with regards to morality.
You understand what reasons are, right?
No,
In
I
that
understand that,
example?
but I
And
understand
you
that.
understand how reasons are appealed to justify actions there,
Yeah,
right?
but I understand. But
Okay, good.
again,
So
that
if you
analogy that you
understand
brought,
that, what I'm asking is,
but you
what I'm
understand that
asking is, if you
brought up
understand
though.
what reasons are,
First,
what I'm
by
asking is,
analogy. That's
yeah, I don't know why you keep talking. If you
well, you
understand
were
that,
talking over me, sir. I was
if
in
you,
the middle of
yeah,
answering your
yeah,
question.
because you're about to say something irrelevant.
No,
So
I'm not.
if you
No,
understand, you think that I'm going to drop it?
no. I'm not going to drop it
So
either.
you're just going to waste our time,
No,
and then I'm going to
you can
repeat the
think that if you
question
want.
that you're
I'm
dodging, that you're
what I'm
trying to
trying to tell
dodge
you is
now,
that you're
right?
not
All
able to
right,
get.
you can waste all our time if you want, then I'll
That's
just
fine. Just go
repeat
ahead.
the
I'll just
question
keep
that you're
talking over
trying
you
to dodge.
since you can't ask me a question and then start talking over me. If you want to play that game, that's fine. Okay. I'm not running. I'm still here. But if you're not gonna let me finish, then we can keep playing this or talk over each other game if you want. I'm cool with it. Okay. All I'm trying to say is that I really don't think that the analogy that you brought up with regards to, you know, traveling and stuff like that is a good enough one because that's not an issue of morality. Can you? I'm just asking you for your benefit if you could come up with another analogy with regards to morality, because what you're talking about there is an issue of convenience. Okay, the reason you have to go on this route instead of this route is because it will be quicker. Okay, yeah, I understand the reason behind that, but I'm talking about the issue of morality. How do we know that such and such is wrong, such and such is right? Are we determining it by how a person feels about it, how they, what type of advantages they could get from the thing? If it brings harm to a person, or are we going by something a lot deeper than that to determine, whether or not the thing is inherently good or evil? So that's all I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to understand what is your reasoning for believing that a lake of rape would be more convenient than a lake of fire, or vice versa?
Yeah, okay. So now you understand what I mean by a reason,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's presumably what you mean by a reason, right?
Yes.
Like if I ask you what was your reason for taking the train rather than walk, you'll say,
Yeah.
well, because my aim was to get there more quickly. That
Right.
was my reason, right? Now you understand that appealing to reasons is what we do when we just give our justification for an action, right? Because when I ask you what is your reason for taking the train, I'm asking you what your justification is.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, okay. So now, when you say that everything that God does is justified, right? You understand that then to mean that God acts on the basis of reasons. Is that right?
Yeah, his reasons are ultimately to his glory.
So I'm trying to understand is there something more glorious about ordaining a lake of fire than ordaining a lake of rape?
More glorious
Yeah.
than uh, I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. I don't know.
Well, you were saying,
It would make it. It would make.
weren't you saying that it would be capricious for God to ordain a lake of rape rather than ordain a
No,
lake of fire?
no. I didn't say that. I said there's nothing that God does that is capricious. He has a justified reason for all that he does or even
What's
permits.
his justification
So,
for pursuing glory?
uh, himself.
What does it mean to say, what does it mean to say that himself is his justification for
Because
pursuing glory?
what else is there?
No, I didn't
There's
ask
nothing
you to
higher.
ask. I didn't ask you to answer a question with a question.
Okay, then I'll just tell you then. There's nothing higher than himself that he's obligated to abide by because he's the standard.
I don't
So that's the
understand what that means, right? So, if I say, "Why did you take a
Alpha and Omega.
train?" right, rather than walk,
Hmm.
right? You can say, "Oh, because it was faster that way, and I was trying to get there faster,"
Yeah, I
right?
understand.
But
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense for me to say because me, right? If I
Hmm.
said, "Why did you take the train?" the answer was me, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to understand when God aims for glory, right, rather than something else. Does he have a reason for that?
There's no other reason other than for his own
No,
glory.
no, I didn't ask
He
you.
does not.
I didn't ask you if he had another reason, right, for pursuing glory,
Mhm.
right? I'm asking you, is his pursuit of glory justified by a reason?
His glory is his reason for all that he does and all that he
I
permits.
don't understand. So God undertakes a set of actions, right, which
Mhm.
conduce to maximizing his glory, something like that. So glory is the aim, right? Glory is the aim,
He's going to get you.
just
Yeah.
like going to New Jersey as quickly as possible is an aim, right? And so he undertakes a course of action, right, to bring about glory,
Mhm.
right? But we can ask a further question, right, which is why is it that God elects to pursue glory rather than something else? Right? Does
I
that
don't
have
think
a
there's any.
reason?
I don't. Well, I don't think there's any harm in asking these kinds of questions, but the answer stands firm that if God, since God possesses a deity, He's self-sufficient and He's not dependent on anything external to Himself. Then the only reasonable, logical response to that question is because of His own glory. That's it. Now you can say that that's arbitrary, capricious, whimsical, whatever you want to call it. You're welcome to think that if you want, but there's a reason he has all these things done. There's an ultimate purpose for it. The ultimate purpose is for his glory. Now, as a fallible, finite human being, subject to the laws of nature here in in the world, uh, is there a way that are there other things or other scenarios that I could probably come up with in my mind that God could utilize to make things better or whatever? Of course, I can. I can use my imagination if I want. But the fact of the matter is, this is the reality that we live in. There's nothing higher than God. God is not subject or subjugated by anything outside of himself. So therefore, he's under no obligation to do things in another way. No one can say to him that you're immoral for doing it this way, or moral for doing it that way, for that matter. He is the Alpha and Omega.
So his decision to pursue glory rather than something else isn't justified by a reason.
His decision to pursue glory isn't justified. You said,
Isn't justified by a reason, is that right?
well, it'd be justified according to his standard.
I don't know what you mean by according to his standard, right? I'm just asking,
Me,
is there some explanation, right, in terms of reasons
I
for
don't know.
why he pursues glory rather than something else?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. If God possesses a deity, then He has no obligation to answer to anyone. He's self-sufficient. So what else? There's
Well,
nothing
wait a
else.
minute, but you said that everything that God does is justified by a reason, right? And we're
We're
agreeing
open to.
that God undertakes to pursue glory rather than some other value, right?
But God doesn't have
And
to use.
so the question is, what's the justification for that? Is that arbitrary, which is to say it has no justification, it's capricious,
Well, I
or
can't.
is there some reason that justifies that?
Well, the only thing I can do is to continue to bring it back to God, since He is the Alpha and Omega. Again, if He is not contingent upon anything external to Himself, the only answer we can say is that the reason why He does these things is ultimately for His glory. That's the reason. There is nothing that's hindering Him from doing anything. He's not on some sort of mission or some sort of endeavor, and there's some sort of obstacle in his way, or anything like that. You know, some Arminians believe that, some open theists believe that, but that's not the biblical teaching of it. If God is the Alpha and Omega, He's all powerful. He has exhaustive knowledge of things past, present, and future, and He even decrees things to occur. Then we can't say that there's some sort of uh, you know reasoning that he has to uh, appeal to with humans for that's going to make humans happy or anything of that sort. I mean, he does these things ultimately for his glory, whether we like it or not.
No, no, I didn't ask you. We've already agreed that he does things for his glory, right? The question is, why does he undertake to pursue glory rather than to pursue some other aim?
I don't know. I
But
don't know.
he has a reason, presumably.
Other than because he's God. I
Wait,
don't know.
how would him being God be an answer to the question? I don't get it.
Because he's not contingent upon anything external to himself. He owes nothing to no one or nothing. So I don't understand what reason. If I have a reason for something, it's either because I'm trying to justify an action that I've done that somebody might disagree with or agree with, whatever, or because I'm thinking about some sort of convenience for myself. uh, God, none of that applies to God in this case. God doesn't owe anybody an answer for anything that He does. If He does give an answer, it's because He chooses to do so. And number two, since we're talking about an all-powerful being, there is never an issue of convenience for God, since he's omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. So therefore, the only conclusion I can say as to why He does these things is I keep bringing it back to the ultimate reason, which is because of who he is and what he's, who he is and what he is. There's nothing outside of himself. I don't know how to answer the question that you're looking for. The
Well,
answer.
now it sounds like you're saying that you were equivocating on justification and reasons when you applied those to God, right? Because I thought that when we said, right, the way we understand justifying an action, right, by reasons is in accord with the example that I gave, right, about going to New Jersey. You said you understood that, right? And that is what you meant by justification when you said that God's actions are justified. And so you said that God ordains a lake of fire because it conduces to his glory. That's the reason, right? And so reason there works the same way as it does in the human case, right? But now when I ask you what justifies God's pursuit of glory rather than some other aim, all of a sudden you're saying, oh, well, there's no so intelligible sense of justification for that that can be appealed to in the case of God, right? So it just sounds like when you say God is not capricious and not arbitrary, everything he does is justified, you're just equivocating on justification. And you didn't mean what we meant all along. So which is it? Is it the same sense or is it a different sense?
No, I don't think I'm equivocating when I'm talking about justification. Okay. Again, what I'm saying to you is that if God needed to justify something, okay, well, first of all, he doesn't owe a man an answer to anything. First of all, if he does just choose to justify anything that he does, that would be purely out of his choice, not out of any obligation that he has to us. Okay, so God is able to justify all that he does within the universe. The question is, why does he choose to do these things at all to begin with? You know, and I'm trying to bring it back to his being, his aseity. Could God have not put the tree of in the Garden of Eden, the tree of the knowledge of fruit, the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden? Yes, of course, but he did. Okay, and the only reason we can come up with from a anthropomorphic sense is ultimately for God's glory, because since God is again the arbiter of all of these things, there's no obligation outside of him that he was under for him to put that tree in the Garden of Eden. He did it, in this sort of a sense, arbitrarily. There was no obligation he had. So, and his reason is ultimately to bring glory to himself.
Great. So I'll take you at your word that you're not equivocating. So then I'll just repeat the question we're still trying to get to the bottom of. When God undertakes to pursue glory rather than some other value, what's the justification for that?
Himself.
Yeah, see, so I don't understand how saying the word himself provides a reason. Right? If I asked you, why did you decide to go to New Jersey? Why was your aim to go to New Jersey as quickly as possible rather than get a cup of coffee? Would it be an answer to that question to say myself or yourself?
No, it's a little bit of a different question, because if I'm trying to go somewhere and I have a desire to get there at a specific time at a specific pace, yeah, then I could justify a particular response to the question asked as to why I chose one way to get there or not. Um, but we're talking about the nature of God here, who again is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. So that makes him the arbiter of all things, and he's under no obligation. So therefore, all that he does or decrees is ultimately because of something that he's doing apart from any obligation. There's no obligation that God has to do anything that he does. So therefore, the only way I can answer that question is that his glory is the reason. That's the only way I can answer that question.
No, it's not an answer to the question, why pursue glory rather than some other value, to say because he pursues glory.
So is
Right?
that why pursue glory then? Is that
I'm
is that
asking what the
what you're getting?
justification for that is, yeah. Because you said everything that God does is justified, it's not capricious,
No,
right?
I
And you understood, we agreed that you understood justification as an appeal to reasons, right? Reasons justifying an action, right? And we talked about what reasons are, and you understood that. And then later there was a worry that you were equivocating, right? When you say reasons justify God's actions, right? In the way that reasons justify human actions, right? There was a worry of equivocation, right? And so we asked you to clarify, and you insisted you weren't equivocating, right? And I took you at your word. So if it's the case that everything that God does is justified by reasons, I'm just asking, given that God decides to pursue glory rather than something else, what justifies that decision?
um, yeah, I at this point I'm not quite sure what kind of answer you're looking for.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're just agreeing that you're just contradicting yourself, right? Because before you said nothing that God does is capricious or arbitrary. And if by arbitrary you mean that everything, you mean it's not justified by a reason, but there's no reason for God to prefer glory over cheesecake, right? Then it sounds like you just think, in fact, some of the things that God does are arbitrary, right? And so you just have a self-contradictory view,
No,
right?
no,
Now, if
Jack,
you don't have a
no,
self-contradictory view, what you
no,
could do is
no,
provide the reason.
Jack,
no,
can I
no,
just
no.
ask a question real quick? Because I'm
Yeah.
not.
What would it? What if? Why couldn't it be the case that it's just like that glory is just like an irreducible good? So there's no further reason. It's just an irreducible good. Like, is there? Do you think that there's an issue with that in terms of
Do I
ethics?
think there's an issue with that, or does Jekyll think?
You asking me, or who you
Well,
asking?
I'm asking if you think that there's an issue with that on Beckel's view.
Oh, because he's saying that the good is given by God's nature, right? So I don't really understand what it would mean to say that God does it because he does it.
So it glorifies. You think that saying something that glorifies you, that's that's an external notion of the good, is what you're saying?
Well, I don't see how he wouldn't be a mere spectator of his own actions if he weren't actually justified by a reason.
Well, no, but I'm saying the reason is that it glorifies him. But if it glorifies him, there's not some further reason that it glorifies him, or
No,
there's
but
not
the
some further reason.
point is, you can ask the question, why is um, glory valuable rather than something else, right? And if he says, well, because God is disposed to pursue glory rather than to pursue cheesecake, right? Then he's just saying it's a brute fact that God prefers cheesecake rather than glory, and that would be arbitrary, right? He's denying that God is arbitrary.
No, no, no. I'm not. I didn't say that. No,
You didn't
I said
say
that
that
there are
God
two.
was arbitrary?
I said there are two definitions in two ways that the word arbitrary is used. Okay. So, and I think what's happening is that I think what you're trying to do is commit an equivocation here. And what I'm trying to say is that the reason that God does anything is ultimately for his glory. That's the reason, whether you accept it or not. It's not done because he's bored in heaven, or there's not that anything that he decrees to occur has no ultimate purpose behind it. We could look at the recent atrocities that occurred in the country, past couple weeks. And from the Christian worldview, we could say, well, God obviously allowed that to occur. Maybe some would even say that he even decreed for it to occur, ultimately for his purpose. Yeah, there's an ultimate good that could come out of it, as atrocious as they actually are, um, and as hard as it is to take as human beings. There's an ultimate uh, good that comes out of these things that occur. Uh, but they're not arbitrary. They're not done, capriciously or out of will, just willy nilly, um, you know, anything like that. There's an ultimate reason for it.
I'm asking about, I mean, could God have decided to pursue something other than glory? He's not constrained by that
Well,
desire, right?
that's an interesting question, because if we're talking about a being who's not contingent upon anything external to himself, um, then yeah, I don't know how to answer that question. We're finite creatures trying to understand this complicated being called God, so I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, I don't understand what would prevent him from, if it's up to him, right? He's not constrained by anything else. There's nothing to prevent him from having pursued some other desire rather than glory, right?
There's no standard that he is outside of his nature, his being, uh, that he is subjugated by.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's his choice to pursue glory rather than some other value, right?
Well, that's another thing we could talk about too, is like whether or not if it's an actual choice of his, or if if that's just the reality of his nature. I don't know.
Well, what explains the nature that God has?
What do you mean? What explains the
Yeah,
nature?
so like, why is God a God of glory rather than a God of cheesecake? Does that have an
I,
explanation?
I don't know. It's just the way he
So
revealed it.
you're just saying wait, the way he revealed it. No, I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you
So why is God a God of
which
glory
did
and
he
not?
reveal, right? I'm asking you what explains why God prefers glory to cheesecake?
I don't know.
Well, do you think it has an explanation?
That would require epistemic regress, wouldn't it? Because that explanation would require further explanation and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Jack, this is like really simple. Like it's just a property of God. His glory, the pursuit of his glory, I suppose you could say, or the actualization of his will is part of his nature, as Veckel has said.
Wait, sorry, the just there, is that the operative word? Because we were granting it was a property.
Are you talking to me or
Yeah,
was
I was
Veckel?
talking to you, right? Is the just there the operative word?
The just? Could you sorry, just
You
contextually,
said
could you
it's
just
just a property of God. You
oh
said it's really simple. It's just a property of God, right?
mhm.
Where I assume you weren't in doubt that I was uh, agreeing that it was a property of God, right? So I take it the operative word there is supposed to be just.
No, I was in doubt um that you were either confused or unaware of
Obviously, it's a
the fact
property
that
of
this is
God
a
that He pursues glory, right? Question was, does He decide, right, to be predicable of that property rather than some other property that would exclude it?
whether that property would be a property of God. For instance, glory is a property of God. Therefore, because God is like essentially the proper superset of everything that exists. So if God, so if glory is the property of God and the pursuit of glory is also something which is entailed by his omnibenevolence, then yes, God would actualize, or no, God's pursuing the glory would be um just the pursuit of something. It would basically be entailed by his properties. However, the pursuit of, say, cheesecake would not be entailed necessarily by his properties, albeit he could do it if he, it's his prerogative, I suppose, to do it. But it wouldn't be something that's entailed by his properties.
But I don't see how it's informative to say that it's entailed by His omnibenevolence.
It it,
If
it doesn't need to.
omnibenevolence,
Yeah,
right, is just amounts to saying that God is completely like Himself,
yeah. It can
right?
be absolutely, absolutely can be ambiguous. Like, why I don't
You
understand
just
why we
seem to
should
be a
have
gibberish
complete
generator. All right, I'm
understanding
not
of
interested in talking. You're
God's
just a
mind.
gibberish generator. So let's
How
just
can we
go.
have
Let's just
complete
shut up.
understanding of
Shut
God's
up.
mind?
Shut
We don't
up.
even
Shut up.
understand our own mind.
Shut your mouth. I'm not interested in talking to a
Okay,
gibberish generator.
okay, no,
Okay. Yeah. Shut.
that's a
Shut up.
good code.
Yeah.
That's a good
Shut.
code.
Shut your mouth. I'm not interested in talking to a gibberish generator. Yeah. So Veckel, I'm trying to understand. Does God decide whether to pursue glory rather than some other value?
Again, humans being limited to the universe and its attributes. That's the only way I can answer this question. If there again, there's nothing outside of God that obligates him to do it. There's no so he wouldn't have some sort of endeavor where there's a possible obstacle in his way because he's all powerful. So there's no obstacles that he would ever face to accomplish whatever he wants to do. So whatever happens is because he's either decreeing it to occur or he's allowing it to occur. And even those things that occur under his permission, but not necessarily by his decree, is still working out ultimately for his good and bringing him glory.
Yeah. So you're saying there's nothing to prevent him from pursuing different ends. Is that the idea?
Uh, yes,
Okay,
correct.
so
Right.
then he has a reason, presumably, for pursuing one set of ends rather than another. Right?
Sure,
Great.
sure.
So what's the reason?
His glory.
No, no, no. We were taking his glory as his reason, right? Sorry, we're taking that as his end, and we were asking what justifies pursuing that end rather than some other end.
His glory.
Yeah, we've been through this before, right?
Yeah.
When I
The only
say
way.
to you, when I say to you, right, what's your reason for doing X, right? It's not an answer to the question to say X, right?
Okay, you're asking me because I am subject to the laws that are in this universe. So if I want to get to point A from point A to point B at a specific time at a specific pace, then yes, it makes more sense to say, okay, the reason I'm taking this mode of transportation to get to point B at this specific time is because it rationally makes more sense. So I have time and space as my obstacle, as a possible obstacle in that sense. Okay, but since God has no obstacles, okay, he's not subject to any of these kinds of things that I as a human is, then the only other reason we can say, the only reason we can say that he does anything at all is ultimately for his glory. There is nothing that he's not in the heavens saying, being frustrated because something is not going his way. That just doesn't that's not that doesn't that frame of thinking doesn't line up with what's laid out in scripture. uh, Anything that happens, either God permits it or God decrees it. And, so God's not going to be frustrated and say, oh my goodness, I didn't see that coming. You know, he allows
What does
these.
that have to do with the question that you were asked? I don't understand. What does that have to do with the question you were asked?
You asking me? Say it again.
Yeah, I don't understand what that has to do with the question that you were asked.
I think I don't quite sure. I'm not quite sure how else to answer the question. If God, there's nothing that God is obligated to do.
So the question is there a further reason for God to pursue glory rather than
No,
something else?
no, there is no other. All things are really done for His glory, according to His good counsel.
Uh, we, that might be true that that's what they're done for, but we're asking if there's a reason to have that aim rather than some other aim.
The pursuit
No,
of
no.
glory is entailed by his
Can somebody
omnibenevolent
just
property.
remove that guy from the stage?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
come
yeah, yeah.
on. Why not? Why?
Because
Exactly.
he's a gibberish generator.
Oh, come on now. That doesn't sound right. But anyway, yeah, I don't. I'm sorry, fellas. There really is no other answer to it. Again, I think your problem is that you can't think outside of your atheistic box, and you keep wanting to put God in some sort of position that humans are in. That there's some
But stop editorializing. If I don't, it's not just no more editorializing. It's just, if you say you can't answer the question, then what,
No, I
what
already
exactly
gave
are
you
the
the answer.
implications? Well, you said there is no answer to that question.
No, there's only one answer. And again, if God is the arbiter of all things that exist, then he has no obligation to do anything. There's nothing in the universe that's going to hinder him or frustrate him
But this is what
or
I
any
asked you. I asked you how that's relevant because it doesn't seem like it's relevant to the
relevant
question.
to what? Relevant to what?
To the question that's being asked of you.
The question is assuming that there's something outside of God that he owes a reason to. And if I'm telling you that if God does all things ultimately and solely for his glory, then that's the answer.
Yeah. So that's we already accepted that, right? That's what he
Yeah.
does. And we said, is there a reason for that? Is the answer yes or
No,
no?
no, no, that's where it stops. That's where it stops. It stops his glory.
Yeah, so when you say God undertakes to pursue glory rather than undertakes to pursue cheesecake, you're just saying that's arbitrary. He doesn't have a reason
Well,
for preferring one over the other, right? So you're just contradicting yourself.
you're
Hmm.
making up an issue that doesn't exist in the Christian, about him making between cheesecake and whatever. We're just telling you what's laid out in the scriptures and what's also in the Christian worldview.
Yeah, so I'll just recapitulate
So
the objection since you don't seem to be getting it, right?
I don't think you're
Yeah, it
getting
says
it.
shut up while I'm talking, dumbass. So I'm just going to recapitulate the objection, okay? So you don't
You
seem
can
to be
keep doing it
getting
all.
it. Shut up while I'm talking, Okay?
Who the hell do you think you are?
Shut up while
You
I'm
think you know God?
talking, dumbass. I'm going to recapitulate the
Can you
objection,
spell that right
right?
for me?
You said, right, that nothing that God does is arbitrary or capricious. Everything he does is
There's enough,
justified,
man.
right? And I asked you if by justified you meant justified by reasons, right?
Hello.
And so then we went over what it was to appeal to a reason, right? And rationalizing an action, right? Now, you said, right, that the reason why God creates lakes of fire was ultimately in pursuit of his glory, right? It's glory that rationalizes, it's the pursuit of glory that rationalizes that action, right? Now, so then we asked you, right, is it up to God to decide whether to pursue glory rather than some other aim, right? And you said there's nothing external to God to constrain him, so it is up to him, right? So obviously, if it's up to him, he undertakes to pursue glory rather than something else, right? And you're saying there's no reason why he pursues one rather than the other, which is to say nothing justifies one course of action rather than the other, right? Now, if nothing justifies it, it's by your own definition arbitrary, right? And you've just contradicted yourself, right?
Well, you're welcome to think that. The problem is though that when I use the word arbitrary in the sense of why God does what he does, I'm saying that there is the reason he does these things is ultimately for his glory. Whether we comprehend that with our mind, with our finite mind, or not. Um, but again, I want to make the distinction between that and him doing these things because there's no ultimate purpose behind it or authority with the things being done. And that's the other way that I'm trying to get you away from with regards to the other use of the word arbitrary. So, could God have done things differently? Of course he can. You know, he's all powerful, he's almighty. He's under no obligation to do it any other way or the
Bro,
way.
stop rubbing your microphone. Just talk into it. Don't kiss it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to charge my phone. Sorry about that. Um, so God is under no obligation to have done it any other way. So, I mean, for me to say that he needs a justification for him to have this endeavor to seek glory, uh, I don't know how to answer that question if we're talking about the Almighty God.
Yeah, you're just fucking contradicting yourself, dumbass, right? We've
Nah,
been over it before, right? You said nothing that God does, right, is arbitrary, which means everything he does is justified. And by justified, you mean justified by reasons, right? And you just agreed, right, that whether to pursue glory rather than something else is God's choice, right? That's God's fucking choice,
speaking as a human being.
right? Which just means, right, that if he chooses one thing rather than the other, that's justified by reasons, right? And I asked you if there's a reason why God pursues glory rather than some other aim, right?
Mhm.
And you're saying no, right? Which just means that he's arbitrary, right? And you've contradicted yourself.
Well, don't know how to else
Yeah,
to
there is
answer
no
the
other
question.
way to answer the question. You just have a contradictory view, right? And you were
Really?
shooting your mouth off a few minutes ago, right, about how
Yeah, let
nothing
me
God
right
does is arbitrary, right?
right
And,
now.
you know, how would
I
you
want to talk about
atheists be in a position to criticize God, right, if God is the arbiter of all moral standards, right?
there's
You're
no
just a fucking dumbass.
I don't care what you think. You pay my bills?
Yeah. Why don't you come back when you have an answer to the fucking question, idiot?
Yeah. Well, I don't owe anything to you,
Why do you keep
idiot.
opening your mouth? Right? We
Because
came here to hear if you could defend
Jesus
your
Christ,
position, right? And it
Jesus
turns out you can't
cross.
fucking defend it, right? But yet you shoot your mouth off, right? You shoot your mouth off even though you can't defend your fucking dumb position,
Died on the
right?
cross and he
So
rose from
why
the
keep
grave.
talking unless you can produce an argument in defense of your position?
Yeah, but you can't even give me a justified reason as to why you're going to reject it anyway.
That's a claim. You want to try
Yeah,
supporting that claim?
can you give me one?
I
Why?
didn't
Why
ask you. When I asked you a
can you
question, I didn't
justify?
ask you to ask me a question, right? I
Just
asked you to give me a
can you
justification
just
for the claim,
use your atheist
dumbass. So
justification to
what's the
prove to me that no
justification
God?
for the? Why are you over talking me?
Because
What's
I'm
the
talking.
justification for the claim?
It's my turn to talk. Can you give me a justified reason
You
as to
think
how
I'm gonna
anything that
drop
I said
it?
about God was?
Do you think I'm gonna drop it?
Can you give me a justified reason as to how anything that I said can be demonstrated as being irrational?
Sorry, you made the
Yes.
claim that
Can
I.
you give me?
Shut up.
Can you give me
Okay,
a
I'm not. I'll
reason
just wait until
how
you're done.
anything I said can be demonstrated as irrational according to your worldview? What are you basing it on?
Great. Now you said, right? You didn't just ask that question, right? You
No, I'm
originally
asking.
made. Shut up. You originally made the claim that I wouldn't be able to give you a justification,
Yeah, can
right?
you?
Now I'm asking you to support the claim. Can you?
Can you give me a
Sorry.
justified reason
Sorry. You
as
made the
to how
claim, right?
that was it could be considered logically irrational? Can you give it to me?
Did you make the claim or not?
Yes, and now I'm asking
Great.
the question. Give me
Now
the claim.
when you made that claim, what I said was, where's the justification for that claim? So what's the answer to that
Can
question?
you haven't demonstrated anything that was going to prove to me that what I said can be demonstrated as irrational. All you're doing is making an arbitrary claim that what I said is a contradiction. I'm telling you that in the Christian worldview, since God is the arbiter of all things that exists, therefore he has no obligation to anyone or anything to give any type of reason for why he does what he does. His reason, however, is primarily is solely ultimately for his glory. Now, you can take it or leave it. That's not, but if you don't like it, that's not my problem. I just want to know though, from your worldview, how is that irrational? And what are you basing on? What objective means do you have to prove to me that that's irrational?
Sorry, you contradicted yourself.
Okay, how did I contradict
You want me
myself?
to
You're talking
go
about
over it
the
again?
okay. I think your problem is with the word arbitrary.
Oh, so
I
you
think
are
that's
equivocating on arbitrary then, is that right?
no, I'm not. You are. No, you are.
Sorry, so let's go through it again, right? I understood you to say, right,
Let
that
me go.
nothing that God does is arbitrary, right? And by that you mean that everything that God does is justified, right? And justification is an appeal to reasons that rationalize an action, right? And so you agreed that whether God pursues glory rather than some other aim is his choice, because there's nothing external to him that would compel him to do one thing rather than another. And when asked, well, what justifies that decision to pursue glory rather than some other aim, you said there is no further justification, which by your own definition of arbitrary means that he's arbitrary. Even though you said that nothing that he does is arbitrary, right? That's a contradiction. I don't know why you didn't get it the first few times, right? But maybe you'll get it now.
Okay, let me read something to you. I'm looking at the definition of the word arbitrary. There's a total of 5 definitions. I'm not going to read all of them to you. I'll read the first and the fourth one. Okay. The first definition says this: subject to individual will or judgment without restriction, contingent solely upon one's discretion. Okay, that's the first definition. And the fourth definition is based on whim or personal preference without reason or pattern. Okay, now, when I say God does things arbitrarily, which I very rarely say, okay, I'm using it in the sense of the first definition here, that there is no restriction. God has nothing outside of himself that forces him to do what he does in the universe. Okay, it is according to the definition contingently, solely upon his discretion. Okay, but what I'm criticizing is the assumption that these things are done whimsically, without reason, without pattern, without authority. And this is the problem that atheists have. This is the definition that the atheist is trying to assert with regards to God's actions. And that's what I'm trying to get you away from. Now, if you don't like the fact that I use arbitrary in the sense of the first definition, fine with me. You could call it a contradiction if you want. The only answer that any Christian is going to be able to give you is that God does these things ultimately for his glory, period. There's nothing frustrating him, forcing him to do what he does, or anything of the sort.
Yeah, he
That's
does it for no reason.
Yeah, that's what we said. So I don't know why you wasted our time with all that nonsense. You're just
okay.
agreeing that you
We're speaking.
contradicted yourself, right? Because
No, but
you agreed that it's his choice to pursue
yeah.
glory rather than cheesecake, right? And what rationalizes that decision? Nothing, on your view, which is just to say that it's a purely arbitrary action in the sense that it has no justification on the basis of any reason, right?
So let me ask you. Does God,
So you want to waste our time some more?
so does God? So is it wrong that God doesn't have a reason outside of himself to do these things?
Not relevant.
Okay, so is it self-contradictory that God does these things outside of
I'm
himself?
just saying you contradicted yourself.
No, no, I don't think so.
Oh yeah, so shall I go through the argument again, dumbass, and show you where the contradiction
No,
is?
I'm pretty satisfied with my answer.
Oh yeah? All right, I'll go through it again for
Yeah,
everybody
yeah, go
else's
ahead. Yeah.
benefit. Right, yeah. So, Veckel said, and you can stop me, Veckel, if at any time I misdescribe what you said, right? You said that everything that God does, right, is undertaken for a reason, right? Which is to say that everything that God does is justified by a reason, right? Everything that God does is justified by a reason, right? Now, you also said that whether God chooses to pursue glory rather than cheesecake is his decision, his choice, because there's nothing external to him to constrain him to do one thing rather than the other. So it's up to him to decide which one he pursues, right? And so, what rationalizes the decision to pursue glory rather than cheesecake or any other value? Well, you said nothing. He doesn't have a fucking reason to do it, right? But you said everything that he does is justified by a reason. But not that decision, right? And you want to say you're satisfied that you didn't contradict yourself, you fucking dishonest dumbass.
Jesus said in John 15 that if the world hates you, remember that it hated me first before it hated you. So I
Why would
That's
you
the
say
best you
that?
can do?
I embrace the name calling. Appreciate it.
That's the
Hey,
best you
thanks
can do?
guys. That was some good brain exercise for
Yeah.
me today. Take care.
So
God
long,
bless.
dumbass.
He's so dumb.
Jack, what I don't understand is, I guess I don't really understand the reason if it's like, if he says it's just an irreducible good, right?
My point is, it's always going to turn out to be something brute. There's no way to have um, there's no way to have general. Well, there could be some norms that are built into agency itself, right? But they're not going to be the kind of robust norms that are going to be interesting, right? Like if you just say, well, given that I'm an agent, I must be committed to self-knowledge because given that I'm an agent, I have desires and beliefs which rationalize actions. I therefore have a commitment to um, bringing to realizing the aims that the actions that my beliefs and desires rationalize are in service of, right? And so therefore I have some commitment just in virtue of being an agent to like having knowledge of the facts of the world and the facts about myself that would conduce to realizing those aims, right? That might be described as not brute in some sense, at least not contingently, not brutally contingent, right? Because it's built into agency itself, right? But those are going to be very thin, right? Very, very general norms. They're not going to be the types of norms that rationalize pursuing, rationalize ordaining lakes of fire rather than lakes of rape, right? And so whether you
Well,
do one thing
suppose.
rather than another is going to be brute.
Well, I just want to see if there's some further thread that's like that there's a problem with besides like. I know that this isn't exactly what Becca was saying, but if you take this like first horn approach to the Euthyphro dilemma or something like that, and you say that there's just some external reason to God, and he can't control, like he can't control like what is good, what is bad in the world or something. You're just saying that that's just
Yeah,
irrelevant to Veckel's view.
that's fine because what I'm really objecting to is the idea that the good could be internal to God,
Mm.
right? Because the point is for God, if you say the good is identical to God's nature, right? Then it can't be the case that God acts for reasons, right? Because it's just saying because the good is just what God does, right? So it can't be that God does X because X is identical to his nature, right? That wouldn't be an explanation.
All right, that's right.
Yeah, and that's all that was the whole dialectic was basically an attempt to show that would commit you to an. Yeah, that's fine.
You've just been completely obliterated publicly.
Shut up while I'm talking, right?
You've been folded like a chair caught with your pants down.
Will you fucking shut him up? I wanna respond.